So Marcelo is going to start with a little video about a campaign that he's developing right now to try to address the problem of increased prejudice against indigenous peoples in Brazil, which also has affected conservation of the Amazon and many indigenous lands that protect around 21% of the Amazon. Thank you very much.
Katawa baniwa na katawa ye magapehe paitina Amazonia wani kawama na niti we makayaka Radunku akawam nele dari tawana kukawa pagamaita Wainya kawakapi iyo Patakawa chikure pakuwaka Yawa yuka Brazil Yang sakapakwe paka Yang meditawa chikakali akipitu Sejak tupia ubi 1500 anos Nete panza puaza que na kaya tika da ke pinetika Ya wataite wa maka kewe we maka ima wa ni kakan
How can I get out? Escape. Oh. Oh yes, that is the keyboard.
Click on
First of all, I want to thank you very much. First, Amazon Dam Networks to the invitation for this speak, and to the professor, the supportive professor Simone Ataide, and the Department of Anthropology of the University of Florida, Professor Michael Hackenberger, from the studies of the past of Xingu societies, are helping create the possibility of a bright future. So it's a great pleasure to be here with you. A legend for us from here. Okay. So, as we start with a little campaign that we are performing right now in Instituto Socioambiental, because nowadays Brazil is under a huge threat from ranchers, mainly, who got the government in Brazil, and we are working in many different areas to avoid this kind of pressure. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Xingu River and the big band of Xingu, but also a little bit about the threats in the Amazon rainforest in general. So, while the Norte Energia, the company that built Belo Monte Dam, says the change in water quality, the dam are on the standard. When they say that, the Juruna people is lost in the fish. For them, for the company, it's small change, and they understand under standard. For the indigenous people, those changes can mean no fish. When they say indigenous land will not be impacted by Belo Monte Dam, that really means to the indigenous people death. For the Juruna people, especially, Jaliel Juruna, who I honor here now, died in November 26. last year near his home, doing what he did for living. He was fishing. Dive in the river to get ornamental fish. Belo Monte made this fish here in the region, and the indigenous people needs to dive deeper to get this same amount of fish to sustain their families. And because of the turbidity on the water, on the standards for the company, they lost the sense of environment, and it was responsible for one death of a young man last year. The Yuja or Juruna people, as they are known in the region, live on island and banks of Xingu River. They are the owners of Xingu River because they huge knowledge about the river, but also because they migrated from the headwaters, the Xingu, from the Xingu Indigenous Park that we will see the slide afterwards. And Muratu is one of the villages of Paxamba territory in the Big Bend of Xingu, 10 kilometers away from the Belo Monte Dam, and 9.5 kilometers from where Belo San Mining, which is another company, wants to install a big operation of gold extraction in that area. So they are suffering diverse impacts as other indigenous and riverine peoples in the Xingu River. One of these impacts is overfishing, just one of them. So the Big Bend of Xingu is the epicenter of a red alert that we are going to be talking today. But not only the place, it's not the only place of extreme transformation from Belo Monte Dam construction. Not the only place under threats of Belo San mining. What is happening in Big Bend of Xingu affects all the Xingu River. What is going on in Big Bend is part of a larger model of destruction that some insane people call development. Along with the dam and mining, this model includes soybeans expansion. It's about 50,000 square kilometers a year of the deforestation by the soybeans plantation in the Amazon rainforest. Part of it illegally deforestation, major part illegal deforestation, and has the whole of pesticides used as well, toxic pesticides, was triple just in Pará State last year. So what has happened as well is the increase of cattle in the Amazon rainforest, about 59% of the deforestation occurred because of cattle. Just now there is a big operation in Brazil called Carne Fraca, getting some illegal meat in the market and trying to arrest some of the barons of this industry in Brazil. It includes also pavements of roads and planning of new roads and illegal logging. So there are thousands of kilometers from illegal logging roads inside the conservation units. So the results are the increase of deforestation. Like since 2014, 51% of increase of the deforestation. Just in 2015, 29% in the Amazon rainforest. So it's increasing a lot. Like the Brazilian government did a huge work and decreased the deforestation in the beginning of Lula president mandate, but in the past years the deforestation is rising again, and we are concerned a lot about it. So, in the other hand of those impacts are okay. go through the slides. Just better.
Yeah, the key.
Just to illustrate a little bit what I said until now. Like this is the Amazon rainforest. The red spots are the deforested areas. You see 2000, 2010. And this area, you see, is the Xingu River and the Xingu Protected Area Corridor. And this is the arc of deforestation. And you see, what remains today of forest mainly is under legal protection, or indigenous territories or conservation units. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. So this is some images about cattle, fire, illegal logging, and now we are. This is the other hand. This is the other possibility of development. So resistant to what I said, together with the forest, river, animals, there are thousands of communities, traditional communities. In Xingu Basin, there are 24 different groups, traditional riverines in 4 different extractive reserves for rubber tappers. Like in the Transamazônica Highway, there are the peasantries, and they are dealing with the forest as well, and to small agriculture. And and also fishermen, Quilombola communities, the Maroons, and altogether is a huge area of rainforest. The Xingu Basin is about 52% under government legal protection, including indigenous territories and conservation units. It represents more than all 59 U.S. national parks together, just the Xingu area. And about 1.2 the size of Florida state. So just to have a dimension what we are talking about. This is one of the richest combination of social biodiversity in our country and probably in the entire world. Hackenberger and Simone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Present the evidence.
Yeah. Okay, I will. So, who are resisting these threats to traditional people and biodiversity? Are the people worldwide to believe in a future with forests in a political economic system that can sustain with them. So it's not only the traditional people, but also the supporters, a group of supporters from society, researchers, NGOs, and part of the society that believe that we have other chance, other possible model for development in our world.
Marcelo, there are red dots there. What is that area, the light there? Is it the Terra do Meio?
Yes. Like just to explain better,
the red is deforestation.
The red is deforestation. These orange areas are indigenous territories, and these green areas are conservation units. It's in the middle land. We call it the middle land area. And Altamira is just here. And this is the big bend of Xingu River, where Belo Monte was installed.
So deforestation is happening inside the area.
Yeah, this area, it's an APA, uma área de proteção ambiental, which is not very restricted. So it's possible to allow ranchers and private properties inside. But what happened in the 80s, between 80s and 90s, this was an area huge explored by Mohogano, and then was invaded by land grabbers. So in the beginning of 2000, lots of riverines were expelled from their house because of land grabbers, and that started a movement from these riverines. They did a connection with social movement in Altamira, like Antônia Mello, who now is the coordinator of Xingu Vivo para Sempre. And Antônia Mello sent a letter to many NGOs and government people, and a lot of people answered this letter and went to Altamira, and it was the first meeting of the Middleland Network, and they talked what to do. What they did, the environmental ministry demand a study from the area and a proposal to set up a mosaic of conservation units. So ISA won this call for proposal, and André Vilas Boas was the coordinator in between 2000 and 2002, and after that they start to create first Riozinho do Anfrísio, 2004, and after the death, the murder of Sister Dorothy, which was in Anapu, the answer of the government was the creation, the inauguration of other conservation units. So this block of conservation units like filled the gap between this block of indigenous territories and this block of Kayapó indigenous territories, and here the Xingu Indigenous Park. So if those conservation units were not being created on time, probably this area should be deforested and with pressure from inside the conservation units and inside the indigenous territories. So it was just on time, but this had spots, it's because it was a bit late. So discussing a little bit about Belo Monte. This is an overview about the Xingu River, some of the villages nowadays. Hackenberger can show you some images of villages of thousands of years ago, so that those people are there for many, many years. Those are the rubber tappers. They went there for the rubber cycles in between 1870 and 1920. Because of Chico Mendes' fight and other rubber tappers, they got their land as well. Brazil nut trees. So this is the big band of Xingu. I will explain a little bit, but before I talk, Altamira is here. The Xingu River flows down here, and this is the main dam of Belo Monte, which transfer the water from an artificial canal and an artificial lake, and then produce energy in this Belo Monte dam, the second dam of this complex. And what happens is, from here, the water is high all year long, and below the dam, the water is very low levels all year long. So there is no more variation as it happened before, and it caused a lot of problems to the local population. Someone is controlling the time. So. Yes. Okay. So, Belo Monte Dam has caused huge impacts for the populations of Altamira and neighboring cities, the river, and many indigenous territories and traditional communities all along the Xingu River. Belo Monte has a conditionality that a company should build a sewage system to clean the sea effluents before it flows to the river. This is a very important conditionality and should be constructed before Belo Monte Dam. And it's important because raw sewage is pumping directly to the river, which is now a dam reservoir. Norte Energia did build a treatment plant, however, it failed to connect the plant to the houses in the city. So there is a very modern system to treat the sewage, but the houses and companies are not linked to this system. So the raw sewage it's still going to the river. And this was some of the implementation plans that should have mitigated further population press for Belo Sun. It go forward only will increase this problem, because Belo Sun will attract more people to the city. Belo Sun mining, I will explain a little bit more after, has problems with toxic waste as well. You can join the raw sewage and increase the problem to the Xingu River. So Norte Energia and the government also did not implemented their plan to protect the indigenous territories and conservation units. There is clear evidence that the rates of deforestation and illegal logging in the region increased because of the increased population around the dam. This was something that the implementation plans should have mitigated. Further population pressures from Belo Sun, if it go forward, will increase as well the rates of deforestation and illegal logging in the region. The overfishing and the reduction in fishing caused by the dam has devastating impacts on the local community and will worse if Belo Sun occur. The Federal Attorney General and the team of researchers are currently fighting a huge battle to try to recognize the population of fishers below and above the dam, and indemnate the dam for losses while mitigation further damage. This overfishing leaves traditional riverine communities without economic activities. Therefore, communities need other economic alternatives to create sustainability, even viable livelihoods for themselves. This is a huge problem. It includes extraction of non-timber forest products, small agriculture, and recover areas of forest that could be used for sustainable livelihoods. So there are lots of areas around the reservoir that the riverines were relocated, wrongly relocated. Now the government, the IBAMA, asked it to the company to send them back to the areas, but mainly lots of those areas are deforested already, so they need to recover these areas to have a better life. So before I start talking about Belo Sun, oh, this is another image. Like if Belo Sun is built, the two mountains of waste they are planning to live there. So the Canadian company Belo Sun Mining, controlled by Forbes and Manhattan Incorporated, announced on February 2nd this year the concession of installation license for the Volta Grande Mineração project, located adjacent to Belo Monte hydroelectric plant. And they announced it before the government of Pará formally approved the concessions. They were in the middle of the meeting to approve, and the company has already announced it to public. Yes. So the mining company published a press release in English with the news before the end of the meeting of the State Secretariat of Environment, which was discussing the authorization. This fact shows that, how the license of the enterprise has handled with complete disrespect for procedures, without transparency, and with careless and negligent disregard for the lives of people who live in the Volta Grande of Xingu. The mining company intends to build a project 9.5 kilometers from Paxamba indigenous territory and 13 kilometers from the other indigenous land, which is the Arara da Volta Grande. Paxamba is here, 9.5 kilometers, Arara da Volta Grande is here. So the mine is located near Vila da Ressaca, community with 300 families who depend on farming, fishing in small scale, and if the project goes on, they will have to be resettled as well. So they had the impact of Belo Monte, and now they will have another impact under their heads. Like in 12 years, it is estimated 600 tons of gold to be extracted in the mine, the largest open mine, gold open mine in Brazil. And the end of mining activities, two giants heaps of chemical activities, waste, cover an area about 346 hectares and containing about 500 million tons of rock will remain. Those two mountains. And this waste is even more toxic than released during the devastating disaster in Mariana, in Minas Gerais. I think you guys maybe know what happened there. But and the other curious thing is the same engineer that planned the Mariana plants planned the Belo Sun plants as well. So this engineer is indicted for homicide for the dam burst in Mariana. So, same guy. So the area planned for the mine is already being seriously impacted by the bad implementation of Belo Monte hydroelectric plant that is causing a decrease over 80% of the flow of the water along 100 kilometers in the big band of Xingu. This is an area where there are indigenous people and other communities, forests and fish, and because of this, around February 16, 18 tons of fish had died. Sorry, because the water was the river was very dry, and IBAMA, which is the Brazilian Environmental Agency, fined Norte Energia in about $10 million, and they didn't pay this fine yet, but they were fined. So the reduction in the volume of the water is drastically changing the way of live and indigenous riverside populations. So the license run against the opinion of the Brazilian indigenous agents as well, the FUNAI, which asked for review of the studies regarding the indigenous component. FUNAI believes that the studies presented by Belo Sun are insufficient to evaluate the impact of the enterprise on the people who live there. The federal public defenders, called DPU, and the general attorney, it's not exactly the same of general attorney, but the Ministério Público Federal from Pará had sent a recommendation against Belo Sun as well. So the MPF already launched two other actions against the enterprise. The federal justice just suspended the Belo Monte license last month. The Belo Sun license last month, and the license is still suspended. But we have seen in Belo Monte case that money talks more than technical issues and than legal issues. Besides all threats and irregularities, the higher court can override Pará justice decision. This happened lots of time in Belo Monte dam process, during the Belo Monte dam process, and there are more than 20 different actions in the court in Brazil to be judged. Lawsuits. Okay, thank you. The indigenous communities affected were not consulted about the project, according to the Convention 169 of the International Labour Organization. And nevertheless, a note from the company published last Thursday a month ago, expressed appreciation for the support of the project by the state and municipal government and local communities. So the company says everybody approve it. This is not true. The indigenous community directly affected were never consulted. In August 2016, a UN report of indigenous people in Brazil denounced the situation, and Victoria Corpus, the special UN rapporteur, went to the Big Bend itself, so he could see what was happening there. In May last year, the Secretary of Environment of Pará, Luis Fernandes Rocha, promised to conduct studies on cumulative and synergic impacts of Belo Sun and Belo Monte projects before making any decision about the license. He did not honor his public word and signed the license anyway. A Canadian company registered in Canada under Canadian government responsibility cannot legally or moral go overseas and destroy the Amazon rainforest, destroy our indigenous people, and disrespect our laws. The Juruna leaders went to the Canadian ambassador on February 23, last February 23, to denounce the irregularities. And then the Juruna asked a serious intervention of the Prime Minister, Mr. Justin Trudeau. In this case, he's promoting a large project to reconcile with the Canadian First Nations in Canada. And in Belo Monte case, he has the opportunity to make an example to the Canadian companies that disrespect the indigenous peoples overseas as well. So let me show you. Just to illustrate, I will show.
Put in the presentation mode.
Okay.
Não, acho que se você quiser aqui, ó, presentation, isso, e clicar daí vai.
Password.
Absolute song.
Is on? No. No. Two minutes.
Mas também me deixa revoltado é que uma empresa dessa veio do Canadá e para a Amazônia tirar o sustento do povo, tirar o sossego, né? Mas todo mundo aqui podia ajudar uns aos outros, hoje ninguém pode mais. Na agricultura, por duas superpotências, como Belo Sun e Belo Monte. Sabe que o nosso país é muito fraco. Chegou a Câmara de Dinheiro, já comprou licença. Não, rapaz, pegou a licença. Não é verdade? Nosso país é fraco.
Então, a gente assistiu o que aconteceu em Mariana, a gente já estava com medo. Né? E a gente assistiu, viu no jornal o que aconteceu em Mariana. Aquilo foi um desastre, né? Um dos maiores desastres que aconteceu no Brasil. E a gente teme o que aconteceu lá, que aconteça aqui também. Não só o Belo Monte, agora Belo Sun também. Mas está inseguro.
Irmão, venha buscar aqui sobre nós não aceitamos produção na nossa região, nem na nossa região do Brasil. E essa empresa canadense deixa que é nossa.
This is not public yet.
No, it's
Still private.
yeah, it's a private section. It'll be, I think the next days will be in the web as well. So this is just to illustrate a little bit some images from the region and from the people who lives there. So, and what we can do in front of this situation, like I think this is the discussion I would like to invite you to have now. Like the case of Belo Monte and the threat of Belo Sun installation call our attention to the Xingu. This demand for us a combined strategy between local communities, researchers, NGO, media, and government, or at least the part of the government concerned about the future of the Xingu, and to attention at Brazilian law and international agreements. So nowadays in Brazil, the Ministério Público Federal, sort of Attorney General, as I said before, is playing a key role in these kinds to promote justice, to ask the law enforcement, and the MPF listened to many reports, complaints, and denunciation coming from the communities. Like just now, like today, at the same time I'm talking here, there is a public, like audiência pública, public hearing occurring in Altamira about the situation of indigenous people, fishermen, and riverines in the big bend of Xingu River. Consider the impact of Belo Monte, the conditionalities of Belo Monte, the Norte Energia, the company responsible for Belo Monte, that was not done, and about the future, what they can do about the future. So this kind of public hearing, it's very important to put all the people together and discuss solution and create pressure to the government. Of course, they invited the National Environmental Agency, the company itself, and other stakeholders in this issue. I want to give you one example to illustrate this integration between communities, researcher, NGOs, government, and the MPF. Like 4 years ago, Norte Energia hired a research group to monitor the fishing on Xingu. Actually, they hired this group more than 4 years ago. According to the methodology, one conclusion was that the fishing in Xingu were increasing, evidenced mainly by the fish price. So the price of the fish increased in the city. Lots of fishermen went to the river at the same time with more equipments, and the research methodology got some points to measure the fishing disembarkment. And according to this methodology, the fishing was increasing, which was not true in each indigenous village or in each beach of a riverine. And they complained. They came to ISA and to University of Pará and asked support. Like what they said, their conclusion is it's completely wrong. Like we know and we feel that the fish is decreasing in the river, and we want to prove it because our word they are not listening. So we start independent monitoring program together with the researchers from University of Pará, Juarez Pesutti and Cristiane Carneiro, that results different reports sent to the company, to the Ministério Público Federal, and also this publication, which is an atlas of Belo Monte impacts over fishing. So this was an instrument of easy understanding, even for people of government, even for company people, because the indigenous people know what is written here. And they could fight, not only the indigenous people, but the riverine, the fishermen, they could fight, and the company and the Brazilian government recognize the impacts on fish, and now are trying to do some plans to remediate those impacts. So this is only one example. There are many others of this kind of cooperation, which we believe is key. It's very important in this case in the Amazon rainforest, which the timing, like, it's very important. Like, so the research time sometimes is not the political time, and the NGO in between, like the researchers and the community, not representing the community, but supporting them to write down informations and to go direct to the point. It is very important to keep going and have the Ministério Público Federal to get this information, to get the complaints from the communities and transform it in lawsuits and recommendations and this kind of things. It's the way that some things is being done in the region right now, because Belo Monte is constructed. In 1989, a meeting of researchers, indigenous leaders, journalists in Altamira resulted in to stop the finance for the Belo Monte project. And it was like this more than 30 years. Like Belo Monte was stopped for 30 years because of this kind of articulation. Right now, we need to deal with Belo Monte Dam and support the traditional communities to get their rights, and use Belo Monte Dam as an example to not have other kind of constructions like this in the Amazon rainforest. This disrespect of rights and for the forest and indigenous people. So to contribute to the research approach on this issue of threats in the infrastructure projects, especially in the Amazon rainforest, I would like to bring like 5 points just to that we learned on the field. The first one is one concept that Bruce Alberts and Davi Yanomami present in a recent book that I strongly recommend, called The Fall of Sky. Is that its translation in English? The Fall of Queda do Céu, The Fall of Sky. And Bruce Alberts says that a concept of implicit research, like when the researchers align with the communities and that conduct the research within the communities, and they're like politically, he's involved with the community, he supports the local communities during the research, but the research together, like the research help to promote the political and cultural goals of their subjects. The second thing is investing in an intercultural approach. Like Western science is not the only science that matters in the world. The traditional people have an incredible knowledge. Those people practice science as well. They observe the nature, they observe themselves, they learn from this observation from like 2,000, 5,000 years ago, and they built amazing things and developed amazing concepts over their experience and their research. And it's hard from the Western science to recognize this kind of research. So just to get one name, of many, Manuela Carneiro da Cunha, it's an anthropologist, professor from the University of Chicago and from USP in São Paulo, is one of the several dedicated research that discuss this approach. One example of science using of science use of this knowledge is the Intergovernmental Panel for Biodiversity, IPABS. I think Bromgizio was here talking about it. Like, they use sources from the traditional communities as like scientific source to their reports. Third, I think it's necessary to have more long-term relationships of researchers with the same field work, with the same group, as Professor Hackenberger has in Xingu. The indigenous communities can learn from the researcher, and the researcher can learn more from indigenous communities in the long term and influence politics sometimes, and influence the vision of society over those people. Fourth, to explore more intersectional research. For example, the interconnection between economy and anthropology, as Professor Mauro Almeida, another anthropologist, does very well. He's from Unicamp. He's an anthropologist that knows a lot about math, do calculations, and knows about economic concepts, and apply this to the anthropological discussion and come up with really key concepts. The connections between the biology and anthropology, as Professor William Ballet from Tulane University does. The anthropologists that learn a lot about plants, about biology, and goes to the field and get very very detailed methodology, like the biology evidence for the cultural forests, for example. Another one that connects economy and environment, for example, as Ricardo Abramovay, another researcher from Brazil, from USP, does really well. So we need more research on socio-environmental costs of the dam. There's lots of very interesting discussions going on in different fields, but just a few of them, or almost nothing, is doing like hard calculation and of the amount of the social and environmental costs to build this kind of dams. So they are not considered, not only the cost, but the time to build it, for example, to prepare a sewage system in a city. It's not just money. Like Norte Energia had the money to do that, but not the time. Like, they should begin the construction of the system before Belo Monte construction. There is a lot of training needed for the managers, the local mayor, and a lot of connections needed. So, and the last, to identify and work under a network of collaboration, together with local associations, NGOs, government, and other researchers, as Professor Simoni and the Amazon Dam Network do. And another example is a recent network called Xingu Plus. This is this is an example of this research, like the independent fishing monitoring. They are still monitoring together with UFPA, with ISA support, and they are publishing their informations online. This is from their website. IMIX is their local association. And they asked it to translate into English as well, to the Canadians and to the people from outside, understand better what's going on there. Like Belo Monte was like a national issue. Belusan now, it's an international issue. We can influence the investor maybe to not put their money here because they will lose. So this is an example of the Xingu network. This is a table of Hackenberger, Fernside, Viveiro de Castro, and some indigenous leaders as well. This is the WhatsApp group of Xingu Mais with indigenous leaders. This is one indigenous guy from Parque Indígena do Xingu, the indigenous park, that sent a message from a hearing in Brasilia. Like this is Tuíra Caiapó, who put the machete in the face of Muniz Lopes in 1989. So the indigenous people are now connected as well. Some of the leaders, when they are in the city or in some villages with the internet, they want to know what is going on and they want to share information. So this networking is displaying this role in the Xingu River. The Rede de Sementes do Xingu, it's another network, seed network of Xingu that bring lots of institutions together to discuss and to do field research. I'm just finishing. And how to replant the forest. And also get income generation over selling the seeds. And to finish, I would like to say that we are in a moment in the history in the Xingu River, and what is happening in Xingu River represents what is happening in many parts of the Brazil, and also in some parts of the world, when indigenous people and environmental system face massive threats. More than ever, we need to strengthen our social movements, strengthen local communities, the MPF, the FUNAI, the Indigenous Environmental Agents, IBAMA, which is FUNAI, the Indigenous Agents in IBAMA, the environmental agents, and the government, the structures concerned with social and environmental perspectives. And that means coordinate work between researchers, activists, NGO, media, and community members. That means visualize and experiment with alternative forms of development that consider traditional knowledge, river, forests as central issues. I think this is the direction we must be together and more in the field and try to change everything that's going on there. Thank you very much.